This week on MPI, we have one word for you. Sequels. From such legendary masterpieces as Cube 2, Hypercube, to the follow-up to Young Guns that no one ever wanted. Look, I don't need to tell you any of this. Sequels can be bad. We all know this. A few years ago, Red Raven Games released Above and Below, a quirky, charming Eurogame full of character and whimsy. And whilst the Eurogame part of Above and Below didn't really win anyone over in particular, it was the storybook full of narrative bits that really put it on the map. And Near and Far is a sequel to Above and Below that is promising to improve on the faults of its predecessor. But is it any good? Ladies and gentlemen, today, that is the question.
Near and Far comes from one-man band designer, publisher, artist Ryan Lockett. He not only designs the game, but writes the stories, does all the artwork, and hand-delivers it all to your door via a barbershop quartet song in which he does all 4 parts himself. This is truly ambitious of Ryan, but the thing is, with one man in charge of so many different aspects, something has got to give.
Just like in Above and Below, you'll be recruiting characters and setting off on adventures. However, unlike in the previous game where the adventures were random and lived in a ring-bound book, Near and Far adds 11 maps in a second ring-bound book where these adventures live and breathe. This is genius, not only because you get to follow a literally unfolding story through 10 maps in a campaign, but the mere fact that these maps are in a book makes you feel like you're opening a magical tale that's about to transport you into a different world.
Yes, there is a campaign element in Near and Far, but don't you let that scare you, because it's nowhere near as intensive as something like Pandemic Legacy, and whilst it does require you to invest yourself into an ongoing story, it only requires you to invest yourself into an ongoing story, because your friends, they can jump in and out as they come along, and if they're complaining about that, well, then tell them that you bought this game and it's your copy, and they can't really complain about it because they haven't put any money towards it. Really, all they need to know is the general gist, and as they're playing any individual game, they will be completely fine. And if you're worried about exhausting this campaign, well, there's enough quests there for you to play the campaign twice, actually, and have a different experience every time you do. And once you're done with that, there's the character mode, and there's 8 characters. In the character mode, you explore each individual story of each character that replaces the world quest. And after you're done with that, there's the arcade mode. Actually, the arcade mode's a bit rubbish because it just replaces the quests with like cards that give you a target number and a reward, and there's no story or anything. It's probably the least necessary addition to any board game that we've ever seen. But even that's there. And when you're done with everything, there's likely to be like another expansion with more stories. Look, there's enough stuff here. Really, there is.
Honestly, winning is a strange concept in Near and Far because you feel like you've already won just by playing this adorable thing. But regardless, you have to gather points because points make prizes. Near and Far offers a few ways to get points, but primarily you will have artifact cards that will have costs. You'll perform actions on the town board and wander the world map gathering resources and taking on quests so that you can fulfill these costs, cash them in, get points and extra abilities to help you along. It's slightly frustrating playing Near and Far for the first time because the game asks you to draft these artifact cards without even having played the game and having any idea of any of its systems. Yes, maybe there should have been a starting list of artifacts for first-time players, but after your learning game you will have a sensible idea of what to draft, so it's really a minor quibble. There's a dichotomy in Near and Far, and not just in the name, but representatively in what you do. You can either hang about in the town going from building to building like a fantasy version of a Jehovah's Witness, or you can go off on the map, which promises coins, gems, and most importantly, adventures.
The town part is all about getting beefed up. You'll go to various locations such as the Mystic's Hut or the Town Hall, and you'll knock on their door and you'll say, "Have you got any beef? Because I need to get beefy." And they will hand you beef. In fact, they'll hand you metaphorical beef such as bacon, or new companions that will follow you around on adventures, or treasure cards, which are pretty much like items. And everything in this game feels so charming, and that's partly because of Ryan Lockett's wonderful artwork, but also partly because there's a touch of whimsy to everything in this game, to all the naming, to all the tokens and the artwork. And look, this is a thing you can get. This is a pack bird. And this, on the other side, is a pack turtle. And this is Ms. Pac-Man, although our version does not feature a pink bow. And these things let you walk further when you're adventuring and carry more treasure cards with you, which again are like equipment. And I bet you didn't listen to any of what I've just said, because as soon as I said pack turtle, you were like, oh my god, it's so adorable, I want one. I know, everyone does, okay? You're not alone in this. If you are in town and you go to a location that has another player's pawn in it, you burst through the door and you shout, beefcake, and you have yourself a duel, which is a very fancy way of saying that you're going to roll a die, add some stats to it, and see who got higher. If you succeed, then you get to take the action that you wanted to take. However, if you fail, you will skip your turn by going to jail. Just like in Monopoly. Yes. Whilst skip your turn rears its ugly head, that's not really the thing that bothers us about the dueling mechanism. It's more that it feels underhanded. There's no real tactical or strategic decision here. And it just feels out of place in a game with so much charm.
Near and Far keeps it simple with worker placement. Every action on the town board is pretty clear in what it does. Want equipment? Go to the Mystic's Hut and draw some treasure. Want more companions? Go to the saloon and buy one. Want to trade other resources? Go to the town hall and trade resources based on their value, but only being able to trade one resource into 5 or less, or 5 or less resources into 1. Confused? Good. Some of us still are at this moment, just as we're confused about the thematic reasoning for a mine in a town and why it feels so out of place on this board. Overall, this feels very Euro-gamey, but also a bit shallow. No action particularly screams excitement or cleverness or anything gamey, and whilst the theme comes as thick and as heavy as a giant tub of Ben & Jerry's ice cream, this isn't really a game for Euro gamers, which just goes to show how silly the old moniker of Ameritrash or Eurogame really is. This is a game for people who want to go on adventures, see beautiful worlds, and have stories told to them. And all that is great. Well, some of it isn't that great, but not so much that it really matters. Adventuring alone is about as fun as playing a solo board game. Just kidding, solo fans, you've got it going on. Either way, in Near and Far, you get to assemble a party who will go far just for you. But they're not just there to look pretty with their moustaches so twirly that they make even Efka jealous. They give you what every gamer truly wants in their heart of hearts. No, not a Geek and Sun table, they give you stats. Each companion will give you hearts, eyes, swords, and most importantly, slaps.
You sure they're called slaps? Because I thought the whole point of them was that they're called skills.
No, they're called slaps because slaps get stuff done.
No, they don't.
By the way, can you make me a pickle and ham sandwich?
No, we're filming...
Make me a pickle and ham sandwich. See, slaps get stuff done.
Every quest will have a narrative introduction, a bit of story to reel you in. Let me tell you straight away that these are great because they're quick, they explain what's going on, but somehow in this short paragraph, Near and Far yet again shows how seemingly effortlessly it manages to captivate you with charm and its own brand of quirkiness. I have a writing degree, and Ryan Lockett, well, this man makes me so jealous because I have no idea how to make my audience, without noticing, slide in from a reality where they are playing a board game into a reality where they're suddenly heroes in a magical land encountering a sassy talking bucket who got separating from his partner, the talking broom, and now needs the hero's help to reunite them. Whatever Ryan does, he does well, and every time I play Near and Far, I want more of his doings.
Each quest will have at least 2 ways of how to deal with the problem du jour, and some of them will be tied to a stat called combat, and some of them will be tied to the other stat called slaps. They are really called skills, but I don't want to argue. So for example, you could have the option to devise a plan on how to go about rescuing the broom, and you would need a slap of 8 to slap that plan into action, or you could choose to murder the bucket and salvage its carcass for spare parts, and that would require a combat of 9. And you might be saying, combat of 9, that sounds like a lot, it's just a bucket. And you know what? Buckets are notoriously hard to defeat. Just watch our Gloomhaven video for reference. Then you will roll a die. Whatever you get, you will add your particular Start for that with a combat or slaps and see if you match the target number. If you do, great, you succeeded. If you don't, you can always spend hearts to make sure that you succeed.
Structurally, there's a problem, and also with the game mechanisms. In Above and Below, adventuring was the best part, but often felt unwieldy. You had to put in a lot of your time going on an adventure. It was often left up to a dice roll, and if you failed, you just wasted all of that time. And if you succeeded, the rewards were all over the place. Near and Far fixes that by introducing hearts as a mitigating mechanism. To move around the map, you'll need hearts. To build camps that give you precious resources like coins or gems, you'll need hearts. And to mitigate bad dice rolls, you'll need hearts. So technically, whenever you have a bad dice roll, you have a decision to make. Do you spend the hearts to succeed, or do you save them for building a camp because you want the resources? Except it's never really a decision, because if you fail the quest, you can't retry. It's gone forever. And because there's limited number of them on the map, you'll always try a quest prepared with at least some hearts to make sure you succeed.
Overall, the way questing is done in Near and Far is much better than its predecessor, but all of the tension is removed. In fact, in all of our plays, we've never actually seen anyone fail a quest. And I kind of feel sorry for Ryan because it feels like a lose-lose situation. You either add unpredictability or you make it a little bit shallow. You can't have your beefcake and eat it. And actually, I'll take the shallowness, because at the end of the day, this game isn't about unpredictability. It isn't about tension. It is about having a charming story and having a nice time with your friends. And if I have to lose unpredictability to have that, so be it.
And you will have that nice time, unless of course you invite your friend round who will take all the quests before you manage to get to any, and because there's a limited number, it means he's done loads and loads and loads of them and you'll have done barely any, which will make you very sad indeed. Of course, I won't name my friend out of professional courtesy, but you might say to me, Elaine, your friend Nick sounds like a complete arse. But Nick, who makes tanks for a living, by the way, has every right to do so, because this is a competitive game, and questing will give you precious faction tokens, which are prerequisites for artifact cards, or you can trade in at the town hall for coins or gems, or a sense of well-being and meaning in your life, or even maybe a bag of Cheetos. What I'm trying to say here is that there's a dichotomy between the competitive nature of the game and the theme. Near and Far overall feels like a cooperative game. You don't want to block your opponents, especially with that shonky dueling mechanism. You don't want to stop them from succeeding at quests, and you don't want to compete with them for that extra 9 points or whatever, because the theme does not engender competition. Perhaps that's why we felt that after we'd explored all the quests, the game had reached its denouement, but we were actually only 3/4 of the way through. We still had to build camps and get resources and trade them in for artifact cards to get points. In fact, it took us 3 games to shift our perspectives and take the game for what it really is, a medium Euro with light mechanisms where the story and the adventuring is just a feature and not the main event.
Finally, Near and Far plays best at 1 player count, and that is with 3 players. And that's because neither this town hall nor this map has any scaling, especially at the start of the game. In a 4-player game, this town hall is far too crowded, and you'll find yourself enduring the dueling dreaded mechanism much too often. The same goes for the map. Every time you travel on the map and do things, you'll leave camps, and in a 4-player game, there's going to be so many camps by the end of the game, you won't find a good space to leave your camp, so you leave it by the porta potty or next to the speakers or something like that. With 2 players, it's the complete opposite. There isn't enough camps, and camps make traveling easier, and suddenly you find it hard to get to places. And whilst I don't really miss the lack of dueling in a 2-player game, the tension is completely removed, and it doesn't feel like there's any struggle to do anything here.
If you think we've slated this game, well then you're in for a surprise, because we think Near and Far is excellent, provided that you're captivated by the artwork and engrossed in the storytelling and excited by the concept. Anyone that wants to like Near and Far will like Near and Far and should go out and get a copy. As long as you're invested in this game and the world that it builds, then you will have a whale of a time. And for anyone that is looking for something different, well, then frankly, you're not going to want to go out and buy it or play this anyway.
How long do you think till they figure out that we haven't got anything funny to say this time?
Maybe if we just stare at them long enough, they'll subscribe.
But if we don't say anything, how will they know that we have videos out every Thursday?
Maybe by doing that.
maybe by doing that. Do you think if I tell them that we're not sponsored by anyone and we have viewer-powered reviews, that will also work?
Subscribe.
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 Subscribe. Subscribe.